For the first time since this war began, Saudi Arabia just fired on Iran's proxies directly. Oil jumped within hours. The world's most important shipping lane is already a ghost highway, and the country that used to move a fifth of the planet's oil can barely move 10 ships a day. Wednesday, July 29, 2026. Saudi Arabia, for the first time in this war, launches airstrikes alongside the United States, hitting Iran-backed militia sites inside Iraq. It follows more than 30 drone attacks on American forces and Saudi energy infrastructure in just 3 days. Brent crude is already sitting above $80 a barrel, and the fuse that lit all of it traces back 5 months to a single night in February. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched strikes on Iran, targeting its nuclear and military infrastructure. Iran did not back down. It hit back. Within days, Iran was firing drones and ballistic missiles at Gulf states hosting American forces. But its most powerful weapon was not a missile. It was geography. Roughly a fifth of the world's oil, about 20 million barrels a day, passes through one narrow choke point: the Strait of Hormuz, a waterway so narrow that ships pass within a few miles of Iranian territory on one side. Iran did not need to sink a single tanker to shut it down. It just needed to make the risk of crossing too expensive to insure. Attack boats, drone strikes, and missile threats did the rest. Shipping companies pulled out almost overnight. Before the war, somewhere between 120 and 140 ships crossed the Strait of Hormuz every single day. Now, on the worst days, it has been as few as 10. Insurance premiums for tankers entering the strait became so expensive that many owners simply stopped trying. In the shipping world, that is the same as a blockade. Nobody declared the strait closed, but almost nobody was willing to cross it anyway. On April 13th, the United States formalized what was already happening on the water, announcing its own naval blockade of the strait. Iran responded by declaring the strait closed on its end too. More than once, as both sides tested how far the other would go. By late July, the numbers told the story. On one Tuesday, only 10 vessels made the crossing. A normal day, before the war, would have seen closer to 90. On July 14th, the blockade escalated again. The U.S. reimposed its blockade of the strait, this time adding a 20% fee on any cargo that tried to pass through anyway. Oil markets reacted immediately. Brent crude futures jumped more than 9% in a single day, crossing $83 a barrel, its sharpest one-day move since 2020. WTI crude, the U.S. benchmark, pushed past $78. By the end of July, Brent was trading above $86 a barrel, a level the market had not seriously tested in years, and that was before the next escalation. Because through the last week of July, Iranian-backed forces launched more than 30 drone attacks in just 3 days, this time aimed directly at Saudi Arabia's energy infrastructure, not just American bases. On July 29th, Saudi Arabia responded, but carefully. Alongside the United States, it struck logistics hubs and weapons depots used by Iran-backed militias inside Iraq, tied to Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. Roughly 20 militia fighters were reportedly killed. It was the first time Saudi Arabia had joined offensive strikes in this war. But Riyadh was deliberate about what it did not do. It avoided striking Iranian territory directly. Analysts described it as a defensive move to protect Saudi energy infrastructure, not a decision to join a full-scale war against Iran itself. Still, the message landed. A country that had spent months trying to stay out of the fighting had just picked a side in public. Within hours of the strikes, the U.S. said it was preparing further action against Iran, with more expected as soon as that weekend. Nobody has sunk a tanker. Nobody has technically closed the Strait of Hormuz. And yet, for months, oil has moved through it at a fraction of normal levels. And prices have followed. Sometimes a blockade does not need a single shot fired to work. Subscribe for more on what is actually moving the markets.